The impossible choice: imagine you're standing on a platform watching a train approach. You see 5 people working on the track ahead, oblivious to the danger. If the train doesn't stop, they'll all be crushed to death. But there's a lever in front of you, and if you pull it, the train will divert to a second track. The only problem is there's one person on that track too, a teenage boy who's walking towards the train, completely unaware of the danger. You have 15 seconds to make a decision. What would you do? Would you pull the lever and divert the train, killing one person, or do nothing and let 5 people die? This is the trolley problem, a famous thought experiment in philosophy that raises questions about morality, sacrifice, and the value of human life. Meet James, a train control center worker who's faced with this impossible choice. Every day, he watches trains on big screens and makes sure everything runs safely. But one foggy morning, something goes wrong. An empty train starts moving fast, and James has to act quickly. He looks at the monitors, sees the 5 workers on the track, and knows he has to make a decision. James hesitates, his mind racing with the consequences of his actions. He knows that pulling the lever will kill the teenage boy on the second track. But if he does nothing, 5 people will die. The clock is ticking, and James has only 15 seconds to decide. He takes a deep breath, focuses on the lever in front of him, and pulls it. The train changes direction, diverting to the second track. 5 people are saved, but the teenage boy is killed instantly. James feels a mix of emotions: relief that the 5 workers are safe, but also guilt and sadness that he had to make the decision in the first place. The story goes viral, and people start debating whether James is a hero or a murderer. Some say he's a hero who saved 5 people, while others say he's a murderer who killed an innocent boy. The boy's family is heartbroken, and they demand justice. The police start an investigation, and James is questioned about his actions. This is where the trolley problem gets really interesting. Philosophers have been debating this question for centuries, and there's no easy answer. Some people say that you should prioritize the greater good and sacrifice one person to save 5. This is called utilitarianism, the idea that the right action is the one that maximizes happiness and minimizes suffering. Others say that killing someone on purpose is always wrong, even if it's to save others. This is called deontology, the idea that certain actions are inherently right or wrong, regardless of the consequences. Who's right? Is it better to save 5 lives or to respect the sanctity of human life? James's decision raises more questions than answers. He's not punished for his actions, but he's haunted by the consequences of his decision. He quits his job and writes in his notebook, "Sometimes, saving lives feels worse than losing one." James's story is a reminder that even in the most difficult situations, there's no easy choice. Only questions and consequences. Now it's your turn. If you were James, what would you do? Pull the lever and kill one, or do nothing and let 5 people die? Write your answer in the comments, and let's continue the conversation. There's no right or wrong answer, only different perspectives on a complex moral dilemma. As we explore the trolley problem, we'll delve deeper into the philosophical implications of James's decision. We'll examine the different theories and arguments that have been put forward to justify or condemn his actions. We'll also look at real-life scenarios and case studies that raise similar questions about morality and sacrifice. The trolley problem is more than just a thought experiment. It's a reflection of our deepest values and fears. It's a reminder that even in the most difficult situations, we have to make choices that affect the lives of others. So, let's continue the conversation and explore the complexities of the trolley problem together. As we move forward, we'll encounter more characters and storylines that will challenge our assumptions and push us to think critically about the issues at hand. We'll examine the role of emotions, ethics, and morality in decision-making, and we'll explore the consequences of our actions. The trolley problem is a journey that will take us to the very limits of human understanding. It's a journey that will challenge our assumptions, test our values, and push us to confront the complexities of the human experience. So, let's embark on this journey together and see where it takes us. In our next section, we'll We'll meet a philosopher who's going to challenge our assumptions about the trolley problem. We'll explore a different theory that raises more questions than answers, and we'll see how it affects our understanding of James's decision. Stay tuned, and let's continue the conversation. What do you think? Should James have pulled the lever and killed one person? Or should he have done nothing and let 5 people die? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Here's the 1,500-word section for the story script. James's heart was racing as he watched the monitors in the train control room. The empty train was barreling down the track, heading straight for the 5 workers oblivious to the danger. He had only 15 seconds to make a decision. The clock was ticking, and James knew he had to act fast. He glanced at the second track, where a teenage boy was standing alone. If he pulled the lever, the train would divert to that track, killing the boy instantly. But at least the 5 workers on the first track would be saved. The moral dilemma was clear. James had to choose between saving 5 lives or taking one. With a heavy heart, James pulled the lever. The train changed direction, and the 5 workers on the first track were safe. But the boy on the second track didn't stand a chance. He was crushed by the train before he even had a chance to react. The news of the train incident spread like wildfire. People were shocked and outraged by James's decision. Some hailed him as a hero for saving 5 lives, while others condemned him as a murderer for taking the life of an innocent boy. The boy's family was heartbroken, and they demanded justice for their loved one. As the investigation into the incident began, James's actions were put under the microscope. Was he a hero or a villain? The question sparked a heated debate across the nation. Philosophers and ethicists weighed in, arguing that James had made the right decision, citing the principle of utilitarianism. According to this philosophy, the greatest good for the greatest number of people should be the guiding principle in decision-making. In this case, saving 5 lives was the morally justifiable choice. However, others argued that James's actions were morally wrong. They cited the principle of deontology, which holds that certain actions are inherently right or wrong, regardless of their consequences. Taking the life of an innocent person is always wrong, regardless of the circumstances. This argument was echoed by the boy's family, who felt that James had shown a callous disregard for human life. The debate raged on, with no clear winner in sight. James, meanwhile, was struggling to come to terms with his decision. He had always prided himself on being a rational and compassionate person, but the incident had left him feeling guilty and unsure of himself. He quit his job at the train control center and retreated from public life, unable to face the criticism and scrutiny. As the months went by, James's decision continued to be the subject of heated debate. Some people wrote to him, commending him for his bravery and selflessness. Others condemned him as a cold-blooded killer. James's notebooks became a testament to his inner turmoil, filled with scribbled notes and half-hearted attempts at self-justification. He wrote, "Sometimes, saving lives feels worse than losing one." The incident had left James with more questions than answers. Had he made the right decision? Was it ever possible to make the right decision in a situation like this? As he looked back on the events, he knew that he had acted on instinct, trying to save as many lives as possible. But was that enough? The question still lingered, haunting James like a ghost. It was a question that would haunt philosophers and ethicists for years to come. What would you do if you were James? Would you pull the lever and kill one, or do nothing and let 5 people die? The answer, like James's decision, remained a mystery, shrouded in uncertainty and moral complexity. As the investigation into the incident drew to a close, James was left to ponder the consequences of his actions. He had saved 5 lives, but at what cost? The boy's family was still grieving, and James knew that he would never be able to fully atone for his actions. The trolley problem had left him with more questions than answers, but one thing was clear. There was no easy choice, only questions and consequences. Here's a detailed 1,000-word section for the story script, focusing on the public reaction to James's decision. The fog on the morning of the accident had barely lifted when news of the tragic event started spreading like wildfire. People were shocked, angry, and confused. Many were still trying to process the fact that James, the train controller, had made the impossible choice of pulling the lever and diverting the train to the other track, resulting in the death of the teenage boy. As the news reached the streets, social media platforms were flooded with opinions and reactions. Some people were adamant that James was a hero who had saved the lives of 5 innocent people, while others were outraged and felt that he had committed a heinous crime by killing the boy on purpose. The hashtag started trending on Twitter, with many users demanding that James be held accountable for his actions. Others were more sympathetic, arguing that James had made a difficult decision in a split second and that he shouldn't be blamed for the consequences. The media was quick to pick up on the story, and news headlines appeared on every major news channel and newspaper. The story of the train accident and James's decision was splashed across the front pages, with some headlines reading "Train Controller's Tragic Choice" and others "Hero" or "Murderer." The public reacts to James's decision. As the investigation into the accident continued, the police started gathering more information about the events leading up to the tragedy. They interviewed witnesses, reviewed footage from the control room, and examined the train's black box. James, who had been cooperative with the police, was questioned again about his decision-making process. The police were keen to determine whether James had acted within the bounds of his authority and whether his decision had been a deliberate one. They also wanted to know if there were any external factors that could have influenced James's decision, such as pressure from his superiors or personal motivations. As the police investigation continued, James became a focal point of attention. He was hounded by the media, with reporters and photographers camping outside his house and waiting for him to make a statement. James's family was also drawn into the spotlight, with his wife and children facing a barrage of questions and sympathy from the public. The public's reaction to James's decision was not limited to social media and the news. People were discussing the story at work, at school, and in their communities. Some people were passionately arguing for and against James's decision, while others were more measured in their opinions. One thing was clear: the public was deeply divided on the issue. Some people felt that James had made the right decision, while others felt that he had committed a terrible crime. The debate was fierce and unrelenting, with no end in sight. As the days turned into weeks, the public's reaction to James's decision continued to evolve. Some people started to question the morality of the situation, asking whether it was right to sacrifice one person to save others. Others began to explore the philosophical implications of the trolley problem, debating whether it was ever justifiable to kill one person to save others. The public's reaction to James's decision was a complex and multifaceted one, reflecting the diversity of opinions and values that exist in society. While some people were outraged by James's decision, others saw him as a hero who had made a difficult choice in a split second. As the story continued to unfold, one thing was clear: the public's reaction to James's decision would have far-reaching consequences for him and his family. The debate would continue to rage on, with no end in sight. But for James, the consequences of his decision would be felt for the rest of his life. The public's reaction to James's decision served as a reminder that the trolley problem was not just a thought experiment, but a real-life dilemma that had profound implications for individuals and society. As the story of the train accident and James's decision continued to unfold, one thing was clear: the public's reaction would be a defining moment in the history of this tragic event. The question of whether James was a hero or a murderer was not just a matter of opinion, but a reflection of the deeper values and principles that guide our society. As the debate continued to rage on, one thing was clear: the public's reaction to James's decision would shape the course of history and have far-reaching consequences for years to come. In the end, the public's reaction to James's decision served as a reminder that the trolley problem was not just a thought experiment, but a real-life dilemma that had profound implications for individuals and society. The debate would continue to rage on, with no end in sight. But for James, the consequences of his decision would be felt for the rest of his life. As the story continued to unfold, one thing was clear: the public's reaction to James's decision would be a defining moment in the history of this tragic event. The question of whether James was a hero or a murderer was not just a matter of opinion, but a reflection of the deeper values and principles that guide our society. The Trolley Problem. Save 5 or save 1. Animated Philosophy Story Section 4. The moral question. This is called the Trolley Problem, a famous question in philosophy. It's a thought experiment created by philosopher Philippa Foot in 1967. The problem goes like this. A runaway trolley is heading straight for 5 people who are standing on the tracks and can't move. You're standing next to a lever that controls a switch that could divert the trolley onto a sidetrack. But there's one person standing on that sidetrack who will be killed if the trolley is diverted onto it. The question is, do you pull the lever and divert the trolley onto the sidetrack, killing one person but saving the lives of the 5 people on the main track? Some people say yes, it's better to save more lives. This is called utilitarianism, a philosophy that says the right action is the one that maximizes overall happiness or well-being. According to this view, it's morally justifiable to sacrifice one person to save the lives of 5 others. On the other hand, others say no, killing someone on purpose is wrong, even to save others. This is called deontology, a philosophy that says certain actions are inherently right or wrong, regardless of their consequences. According to this view, it's never morally justifiable to kill someone, even if it would save the lives of others. But what about the person who would be killed if the trolley is diverted onto the sidetrack? Is their life any less valuable than the lives of the 5 people on the main track? Does the fact that they're already on the sidetrack make them any less deserving of life? Philosophers have been debating this question for decades, and there's no easy answer. Some argue that the person on the sidetrack is still a human being with the same inherent value and dignity as the others. Others argue that the person on the sidetrack is in a different situation and has a different relationship to the trolley. Perhaps they're responsible for the trolley's presence on the sidetrack, or perhaps they're in a way that makes it more justifiable to sacrifice them. The trolley problem raises fundamental questions about morality, ethics, and the value of human life. It challenges us to think critically about our assumptions and values, and to consider the consequences of our actions. So what do you think? Would you pull the lever and divert the trolley onto the sidetrack, killing one person but saving the lives of 5 others? Or would you do nothing and let the trolley continue on its course, killing all 6 people? The trolley problem is a thought-provoking and complex question that has no easy answer. But it's a reminder that morality is not always simple, and that there are often difficult choices to be made. What do you think is the right thing to do? Here's the rewritten section for the story script, focusing on the aftermath of James's decision. As the days went by, James struggled to come to terms with what he had done. He was not punished by the court, but he couldn't shake off the feeling of guilt that lingered inside him. He quit his job, unable to bear the thought of being back in the control room, watching trains move on the screens. The sound of trains had become a constant reminder of the choice he had made. One day, James sat in his room, staring at a blank piece of paper in front of him. He picked up a pen and began to write. The words flowed out of him, a stream of consciousness that he couldn't stop. Sometimes, saving lives feels worse than losing one, he wrote. The words seemed to echo in his mind, a mantra that he couldn't escape. As he wrote, James felt a sense of relief wash over him. He was finally able to confront the emotions that had been bottled up inside him. He wrote about the weight of responsibility that came with being in a position of power. He wrote about the moral dilemma that he had faced and the choice that he had made. The investigation into the incident was closed, but the moral question remained. Was it right to sacrifice one life to save 5? The debate raged on, with philosophers and ethicists weighing in on the issue. But for James, the question was no longer just about philosophy or ethics. It was about the human cost of his decision. As he finished writing, James felt a sense of closure. He had finally confronted the demons that had been haunting him. He knew that he would never be able to erase the memory of that day, but he also knew that he had to move on. He had to find a way to live with himself and to come to terms with the choice that he had made. But as he looked back at what he had written, James couldn't help but wonder, had he really made the right choice? Had he saved 5 lives, or had he simply traded one life for another? The question hung in the air, a constant reminder of the complexity of human nature and the moral dilemmas that we face in life. In the end, James's decision had changed him forever. He had lost his innocence, and he had gained a newfound appreciation for the fragility of life. He had learned that sometimes the hardest choices are the ones that we make in the face of uncertainty, and that the consequences of those choices can be far-reaching and profound. Here's the 500-word script for the section. Now it's your turn to make the impossible choice. If you were James, would you pull the lever and kill one person, or do nothing and let 5 people die? The decision seems straightforward, but as we've seen, the consequences are anything but simple. James was a man who made the best decision he could with the information he had, but the guilt and trauma lingered for years. Let's talk about why this decision is so difficult. On one hand, saving 5 lives is a clear moral victory. It's a utilitarian argument, where the greater good is prioritized over individual lives. But on the other hand, pulling the lever means taking a life, which is a fundamental moral prohibition in many cultures. This is a classic example of the deontological argument, where the moral rule is more important than the outcome. As we weigh these competing moral principles, it's essential to consider the human aspect of this decision. James wasn't just a faceless bureaucrat. He was a person who had to live with the consequences of his choice. He struggled to come to terms with what he had done, and the guilt eventually consumed him. This highlights the importance of empathy in moral decision-making. We need to consider not just the abstract moral principles, but also the human impact of our choices. Now, I want to ask you to put yourself in James's shoes. Imagine you're standing in the control room, staring at the screens, knowing that a decision will change lives forever. What would you do? Would you pull the lever and save 5 lives, or would you do nothing and let 5 people die? The choice is yours, and it's a choice that has sparked intense debate among philosophers, ethicists, and ordinary people. As you ponder this question, remember that there's no easy answer. The trolley problem is a thought experiment that has no straightforward solution. The decision is complex, messy, and subjective. It's a reflection of our own moral values, experiences, and biases. So, write your answer in the comments below. Share your thoughts, your reasoning, and your justifications. Let's have a respectful conversation about this difficult decision. Remember, this is not about assigning blame or praise. It's about exploring the complexities of human morality. As we conclude this thought-provoking journey, I want to leave you with a question that has haunted philosophers for centuries. What is the value of a human life? Is it a utilitarian calculation, where the greater good outweighs individual lives? Or is it a deontological principle, where the inherent dignity and worth of every human life must be respected? The trolley problem may be a hypothetical scenario, but it raises essential questions about our moral values, our empathy, and our capacity for compassion. As we grapple with these questions, we're not just discussing abstract principles. We're reflecting on the human condition. So, what's your decision? What would you do in James's shoes? Share your thoughts, and let's continue the conversation. The trolley problem. Save 5 or save 1. Animated philosophy story. As the days went by, James struggled to come to terms with what he had done. He was not punished by the court, but he couldn't shake off the feeling of guilt that lingered inside. The question still haunted him. What if he had done nothing? What if he had let 5 people die? The thought sent a chill down his spine. But that's not the only question that lingered. What about the boy on the other track? Was James's decision justified? Was it morally right to sacrifice 1 life to save 5? These questions continued to plague James, and they should plague us too. We've explored the impossible choice James faced and the moral implications. We've seen how the debate continues, and you're part of it. But here's the thing, there's no right answer. Only your choice. What would you do if you were in James's shoes? Would you pull the lever and kill 1 person, or do nothing and let 5 people die? The trolley problem raises more questions than answers. It challenges our moral compass and forces us to confront the harsh realities of life. It's a question that has been debated by philosophers, ethicists, and everyday people for centuries. And it's a question that will continue to haunt us as long as we're faced with impossible choices. As we wrap up this story, I want to leave you with a question. What does it mean to make a moral decision? Is it about saving lives, or is it about doing what's right? The trolley problem may not have an easy answer, but it's a question that should keep you up at night. Think about it, reflect on it, and when you're ready, share your thoughts in the comments. The trolley problem may be a thought experiment, but it's one that has real-world implications. It's a reminder that our choices have consequences and that sometimes there's no easy way out. But that's what makes it so important. That's what makes it so thought-provoking. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this animated philosophy story, be sure to subscribe for more thought-provoking content. And if you have any thoughts on the trolley problem, share them in the comments below. What would you do if you were in James's shoes? Would you pull the lever and kill one person, or do nothing and let 5 people die? The choice is yours.